Yeah, one more minute so we can officially start. That one says 1:30.
We're out. Time to buy. No, and you gotta do it.
Yeah, been a long time, huh?
I
I know you are.
So I get to see the product, just trying to find my way around.
So you're doing good. Ready?
Well, ready.
All right, we'll call a meeting to order at 1:30 for the Finance, Admin, and Police Subcommittee. And we'll do a quick roll call. The roll call will just go around the table. Start on Paul Vance on the mayor, go to my left.
Robert Redner, representing Cloverdale Historical Society.
No.
Alan Berger, being the same.
Brad Rogers, Historical.
Alyssa Morash, Historical Society.
Good afternoon, David Cutler, City Manager.
Melanie Duggy, Council Member.
Kevin Thompson, City of Cloverdale.
Derek Montani, City of Cloverdale.
Jason Ferguson, Cloverdale Police. Thank you, everyone.
And Mayor, we have joining us via Zoom is our Finance Director, Susie Helm. She's just in the other room. Have two attendees, both here to speak on items on the agenda. Mr. Adam Smith is here for the item E2 residential water leak. And Ms. Fisher is here regarding E4 City of Cloverdale and next door.
Thank you. And but we'll wait and see. Okay, moving to B, public comments. Any person wishing to speak up to the city subcommittee on any item not listed on the agenda may do so at this time. Members of the public have the right to speak on any item on the agenda at the time the item comes up for consideration. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the subcommittee is not allowed to consider issues or take action on any item not listed on the agenda. 3 minutes are typically allotted to each speaker. Is there anyone in the room that would like to speak publicly on something not on the agenda? Seeing nothing, is there anyone in the attendees list that would like to speak on something that is not on the agenda?
Thank you, Chair. No one is raising their hand at this time.
Thank you. All right, we'll move into D, approval of the minutes. Anyone?
I'll move approval.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Is there anyone against? Perfect. All right, E1, new business, discussion historical society funding request.
Okay, Mayor, I'm happy to kind of introduce this item. Included in your packet is a correspondence we received from the Cloverdale Historical Society. There's kind of two components. The first component was dated June 4th of 2023. It was request for funding assistance and from the in the budget committee, thanking the city for previous financial contribution that helped build the center. There was also some subsequent financial assistance provided for storage. The letter just provides an overview of the facilities and some of the programs that are provided by the Historical Society. After that correspondence was received, I had a conversation, I think, with Ms. Morash to my right, in outlining the information that would be helpful for this committee to consider the request for financial assistance, including providing an overview of the current budget and any other additional documentation. So we received a follow-up letter on July 13th that referenced the earlier letter, but it also specified kind of the specific ask in this case, which was $65,000 as an annual contribution from the city beginning of the year, which presumably that's either the calendar year or fiscal year, which started July 1. So included in their letter is a copy of their most recent budget for 23-24. They really should let them speak to that, but just kind of high level. Their budget is roughly $130,000 annually, and they're kind of 4 key expenses that are identified within their budget. Operations, marketing, fixed expenses, and then payroll. So kind of their kind of key expense items. And the same budget reflects that their revenue is about 57,900. So they have a shortfall or deficit of about 63,552. So with that, that's just kind of a big picture overview on the ask. Of course, for those who may be listening in, the Historical Society has a facility located in our downtown, in close proximity to City Hall. I know they're very welcoming to visitors, and they have a wonderful museum that showcases part of our history here in Cloverdale. Thanks, and
I think there's but I'm saying that's not all right here.
I'm blocking it there. Okay. All right. Our city clerk has kind of put up the letter for reference if there's anything you want to point to, but maybe turn it over to you, Mr. Redmond, to weigh in on or provide any additional information as the requesting party regarding your funding report.
Thank you. I think that the reason why we're here obviously is that the museum is a major part of the city. And 15 years ago, when we initiated the contract and we built the building, one of the stipulations was it was going to be an economic development type project that would bring added revenue to the city through visitors, people staying in hotels, it being a destination for people to attend. We've looked at that as a means of generating capital for the city. As the better that the museum gets, the better that the city gets. Okay, and I think that is basically the jewel in the crown of the city. Any of you that have walked by, you see how beautiful it is in the daytime. Driven by the evening, you see how magnificent it looks. Okay, so this is what we want to continue to do. All right. We've done a number of functions through the years. A lot of you have attended some of the events that we've had. Ms. Marash is going to read a list of some of the activities that we put on, but that's in your packet as well. We've been able to generate money for the city in the past, but we are now recovering from COVID, as everybody else is. And during COVID, we lost probably 45% of our membership in various reasons, all right, which in turn affected our income dramatically. It also stopped our production of events. Visitors, we've had to cut down visiting hours. It's affected us fairly heavily. We are just now recovering from the COVID drama. Our membership is coming back slowly, but it is coming back. We have instigated some new procedures and committees in order to continue to evolve and be more progressive coming into the future. But we need help in being able to continue to grow. If you know, I mean, it's almost like how the museum does, it's how the city is going to do, you know, right? And so we have events planned. We have people that would like to volunteer to help. But as you know, you can't do events without capital, right? You can't have a director without, you know, funds. You can't maintain the building, things of this nature. They're unfortunately things that we're trying to do, and we've been working diligently, especially this last 10 years, to turn the museum into what it is today. I don't know how many of you have been to the museum recently, but the displays have been updated. We got a Pole Indian basket display. The garden has been completely revamped. I could go on and on, but basically, we need your help. And we need your help in order to continue to be the jewel in the crown, because it is an important part of Cloverdale, and not only of Cloverdale, but of Sonoma County. Okay, and I think it's the prettiest museum in the county for what it is. And I think it's a beautiful thing that needs support. Okay, and I know that 15 years ago, when we did the initial contract, the city was totally in support of the museum. But I think because we've been so successful, the city has kind of thought, well, you don't really need us, right? But it's a team effort, right? And the involvement of everybody will make the museum better. And so that's why we've come to you, right, to help us grow and to be more dynamic in the functioning of the city itself. So that's kind of my opening statement.
I'll just add to that. I'm sure some of you know some of our programs. We have some programs we'd like to launch right now. We don't really have the funds to do it. We're gonna do a speaker series on Madam Preston. She was a healer out around the outskirts of town. She was a very famous woman who was sort of controversial at the time, but she was an attractive and appealing series. Our speaker series was always given at CPAC, so it was like a collaboration between us, and it was great. We've all been there. We were the first to actually sell out here. We had a couple of programs that sold out tickets, and it was really fun. We did one program called Reflections of Women. And we did that program because we were doing a program on reflections of men at the time. The men were up there, Frank Rose and those guys, and they're talking about building. And I turned around to one of the women in the audience, I'd been married to Middlestat, and she said to me, "Oh, I worked at that bank." And I looked at her and spoke, "Why don't we do women's reflections?" We did. We had Sydney Shahini and Rose Lyle and Audrey Kunkel and Mary Jane. And they were on the panel. Greg filmed it. He's filmed everything we've done, so it's all in our archives. But I mean, that's what we do. We tell stories of people here. History is about storytelling. So we'd like to do Madam Preston. We also like to plan another series. The men actually, after that one speaker series, called me up and said, "Well, why can't you do us? That same generation." So Rich Price and a bunch of other guys, and probably even people in this room might want to come and tell their stories about growing up in Cloverdale. It's very personal. And I'll just tell you about one other thing that we just got that is so touching. I felt like bringing it in. It's from a local family, and they came across the prairie in the mid-1800s. And it's a box that was on their wagon train. And there's an inscription in that box in pencil by a little girl who was on that wagon train in, I think it was like 1866. And it's just amazing to look at it and know that somebody, and she was in front of the horses, I think. And her job was to keep their tongue wet because it was so dusty and so dirty that they never would have made it. So when people bring things like that to us, we know that we belong to Cloverdale. And we know that there's a place where their memories and things that are important to them, and maybe not to their kids, they can still want this stuff, right? Sometimes, but we do. And that's why we're here. So we feel like, coming to the city and trying to be more integrated with you, like support from you, makes sense.
Well, we're Cloverdale's caretakers, right? I mean, today will be history. Okay. And this is what, this is our purpose, to gather and protect and conserve the history of this town as well as the county. And I think that we've done, with what we've had to work with, a pretty amazing job. And we'd like to continue to do that. And I think that as the museum progresses and as the city progresses, I think hand in hand, we can both grow together and be more effective for the public when they come to visit Cloverdale. I know that when people come and visit our museum, I work as a docent, right? So I'm there, and when visitors come, they not only love the museum, but also too, we've been fortunate enough to put together a booklet called The Walking Tour of Cloverdale. I don't know if any of you have ever seen it, but basically I give away this booklet, even though I'm supposed to charge $5 for it. I give it to all the visitors, right, for them to walk around Cloverdale and to see what it was and what it is now. And this is something that they can take back to Duluth, Minnesota, or to New York City, or to Chicago, wherever they're from. Right? This is not only a souvenir, but to show their friends where they came to visit. So instead of them coming and staying in Hillsburg, right, they'll come and stay in Cloverdale. They'll come and walk through the city, because it's an amazing city. You guys know this, you live here. It's an amazing city, and was amazing city, and it still is today. And it's sprung from basically a frontier town. And that's what people want to see. So when they come to our museum, they see our frontier artifacts. They see the stagecoach. You've all seen the mud wagon and stuff. They get to see, have hands-on experience of what it was like here, but they can also walk around the city and say, well, that was the old hospital, and now it's, Vine Towers and things of that nature, okay? But it's also something they can take back, right? So it's not just limited to Cloverdale and to Sonoma County. So I think that the museum is a very important and integral part of the city. And I think that it deserves to be supported.
I'll just add one more thing too. I mean, we're not coming just asking for funds and not saying we're not gonna do anything. We are gonna do our own fundraising. We have annually been able to raise pretty core group of people, maybe $22,000 a year. Most of our donations are like in $100, $50, $100, $200 range. Yeah, you can count on that from people. They like giving that kind of money. They feel good about it. And that's wonderful. And we'll continue to do that. We will continue to go out and do much more expansive fundraising. But we would need help from the city to just give us that kind of platform to start.
Well, COVID also cut our funding by about 40 to 45%.
Yeah.
And I think what Elizabeth was referring to was the income we received prior to its.
Yeah, compared to them.
And I mean, it really hit us hard because we have an older demographic, and COVID really affected the older demographic of not only our city, but the county and the state. So we felt it dramatically.
More.
Both these are speaking very well. Need to add any more? You want to add any more?
Well, I need to add something.
Oh, okay.
It was your fault. I just happened to be there.
I wasn't sure if you lost a bet or.
Yeah.
Alone.
Yeah.
Greg, you make other movies. What do you say?
I meant the movies because I believe in the quotes. When you see the movies, you're gonna believe in the quotes 5 times more than you do now, because they're emotionally edited and created, and the attitude towards those things, like the World War I series we did. We caught a lot of those back in the back row. And it's like a, feature film, with what went on and where the camera was and how we added soundtrack to support the reality of what they feel having been in it. And so that's an example, and all of the other stuff we've done are currently on DVDs, and we have a few of them up online. You can stream them. But we want to get there to represent this place online, streaming progressively. So when people look around all over the world, they know who this place is based on what we do over there, not just for its oral history, which we're looking to do soon. We've already done several of them, but we're continually discovering new guys like Lester, who actually worked on those big, dangerous logs on Kelly Road coming over from the coast. And the way that guy talks makes a huge difference in the reality of what this place was, what it is now, and what's going to be in the future. Based on the wine industry and the other stuff, and the place we represent. And because I kind of keep an eye on the real estate stuff, I know that's going to change. It's going to change on how you guys make that decision and how everybody else in the community understands who they are in relation to what this place represents. Northern California, Sonoma County, the world. This is the West Coast. It's California. And we're right at the corner of Sonoma County and 128 that goes out to the coast. It's the most beautiful place in the world, right here. And that's why I shoot that stuff.
We also did that great. I think in our letter, we talked about diversity and inclusion, and it's got a good start on that. So we can spin that up for us. So we're involved in the Latino Independence Day for 3 years in a row. He did a film called Here Are Voices. It was 4 Latino families who came from Mexico in the 40s and 50s. we aren't able to finish that film because we don't have the funds, but one of the people that we interviewed said, no one has ever asked for our story. And these are local Cloverdale residents, and we had at the time, we still have people who are bilingual, and we're really very interested in doing more of the bilingual and presence of things. Thanks to that program. Yeah, well, it's Cloverdale's very popular.
A formal relationship.
And
But if you go to Ukiah, you'll see why. I just got back from Ukiah a month ago.
that's.
We also did a
Yeah,
program. Well, I just wanted to mention the program we did, we brought Mexican folks, put them on the stage at CPAC, right? And then Alyssa arranged for everybody to have headphones, so they told their story in Spanish to the audience, but we got the translation in English. And that's never been done
That
before.
was the coolest.
That was, yeah,
Yeah. Oh, Jenna, we got up and spoke this bigger series, yeah, she spoke in her native language, Spanish, yeah. If you had a headphone, you could hear it in English, we had professional translators, it was cool, yeah, it was just meant something.
we also did a program talking about the Braceros, that whole program, so yeah, we want to be involved totally with the whole community. And so that's part of the museum's job and duty.
So, Mayor, if I can, yeah, it's okay. But first, I want to say, I think the presentation by the Historical Society and the members before us represents, you know, it highlights the services that they provide to the community. But of course, you know, as the city's administrator, I say thank you because I see you every day doing the work you do. What I'm going to share with our mayor and council member is just kind of a budget picture, and also talk about some of the issues that come in regards to these types of requests that we receive. And so I want to apologize if it sounds negative. I'm not intending it sound negative. It's trying to set a realistic picture for our council members. You know, earlier this year, we part of our workshop with council, we talked about the budget picture. So what we're seeing right now is, you know, our revenue is starting to plateau, and what that suggests is that we need to, you know, kind of look at our budget very carefully and start to, you know, even tighten it up a little bit. So that's just kind of a something that Susie's working on the audit right now for the fiscal year that just ended. We're going to try to get that done as quickly as we can. I know Susie's dedicating a lot of time to get it done, so we have a really good current picture of our current financial standing. Because what we've seen a lot, you know, to your budget, we've seen revenues really plateau, kind of level out where we were prior to that. We were, you know, experiencing some growth in assessed valuation, growth in sales tax, impacted by COVID. Not everything's kind of recovered. And so I just want to share that from a context perspective. The other aspect too, relative to funding requests, because I tend to hear a lot from our nonprofit organizations, and it's a reflection, I think, that our nonprofits, it is not just Cloverdale, but across California, are struggling and are challenged by how do you continue to maintain your budget and provide all the services when, you know, you're kind of in the same boat we are with respect to revenues. Things plateau, things were impacted by COVID. So how do we deal with that, or how do we address that? And that's a big question. And I just want to throw that out there because, again, it's a challenge that I think all nonprofits are facing. And what's the city's role in helping nonprofits be successful? Ideally, nonprofits would kind of stand on their own, be, you know, and it's a representation of the community's investment, right? But the same token, there's a number of services that are being offered that provide benefits, and so that's one way to look at this funding request. We've entered into agreements, for example, with the chamber. The funding agreement that we most recently approved was for $75,000 per year, directly tied to specific services that are being provided. So for each ask, if you will, there's a dollar amount tied to that. So again, maybe that might be something you want to look at in terms of this request. Is we talked about new programs, maybe looking at what the cost of those are and tying the funding request to the cost of those programs versus looking at it strictly as funding operations, because I think funding operations can be, and I'm not saying it is, but the historical society can be a little bit of a slippery slope. So if you can tie it to specific services, programs you want to see, it might also make it easier for staff or entering into an agreement. You're tying into what services are being provided to the community, and you're tying those together, and it's not just a taxpayer contribution, it's the services and here's how it's being paid for or covered by the city. So you're gonna, I think, because we're seeing this with the nonprofits, we're gonna get in, I think we're gonna see an increase in requests. And just again, to think about this, not, you're hearing it, not kind of a pitch from the Historical Society today, and it's an important pitch because there's a tremendous need there. But it's just a reminder, there's these other nonprofit organizations that also are providing valuable services, and so we kind of got to look at it from a big picture perspective. And I don't have all the data in front of you today to say, here's the other organizations, here's what they're going to be asking in the picture, in the context of the budget. But we are working to get that to you, and I just want to share that more as context. I think it's things you're all familiar with, but also for the board of directors and the team that's here to kind of hear the same message. I'll kind of pause there. I just wanted to offer some context for your consideration.
I think it might help too to contextualize the question today is to, traditionally we use subcommittees to kind of do heavy lifting, kind of having the more detailed conversation, but ultimately, and please correct me if I'm wrong, city manager will make a decision as to whether or not we want to send the final decision to council for consideration.
Right.
And so there is a kind of a hard yes or no. But what I just from the, reading through the documents, I mean, what I found is that you run a very, very tight ship. And it seems to me, I did have a question and say, do you produce an annual report either online or for your?
We have in the past, if we like to do. We have these other times, especially since we're going to be going out and looking for more significant.
And that costs money to design and, and how you want to do it.
Greg does a lot of Greg does everything volunteer, so all the films he does, he doesn't pay for, and all the graphic design he does. So
Well,
we
and
do run a tight ship.
kind of in that vein too, there's no set format for an annual report. There are the ones that we all see, which is like, 1 page to 5 pages and pie charts and, this is what we did, this is what we accomplished. But, 1 year, there's nothing that says you can't mix it up and do a video annual report. It's Clean Howard did, I think, like right before COVID, we were like, let's mix it up. Let's interview our board members and some of our staff just to give the vital statistics. And of course, they did, a 1-pager of all of the data that was mentioned in the video too, but since that's kind of your,
Video would be great.
that's your wheelhouse, that might be a great way to, because then you can retread it when you're at Rotary Club or you put it on your YouTube channel, there are ways to use it. So, but yeah, that would be something that I'd like to see.
Can I just interrupt just a second here? Because I come here from my building background. I'm an ex-woodshop teacher out of downtown Sebastopol. I own Purple Ranch Plaza, we all know. And we all realize that there's a certain amount of maintenance that really needs to be considered, folks, at the #1 step up. Now, I valued everyone else's opinions before I made this statement, because I want to have you hear all the bases. If we look at the budget itself that we had proposed, you're going to find that I personally put these figures in here. I have paid a lot of my own money to keep this facility going. Put all the materials for our new little add-on in there, which we got city approval for our little storage. And we've considered, I've also put in a lot of the lights with some help from Robert. We're successfully moving forward on all of these things, but I'm at a point now where over the last 12 years I've been on the board, I really needed to address the topic that I'm talking about, that's maintenance from the outside. Every structure that we have in our community needs to be painted. Every structure faces the reality of Mother Nature hitting us hard. We have as a community, our building, History Center, not only does it need major painting, but if we have, I want you to come up and take a look, I'll be happy to go in. We have dry rot. And we have been unable, economically, we've been putting our efforts into other areas of growth. I've spoken, and now this is probably the last time I'm gonna say it, I really need to have some help with facing the reality of putting this beautiful building back up to 2023. We have some issues there, and in the budget, we have some general monies set aside. And I figured if we can get that, great. And if not, we'll take a big chunk of it this year, another big chunk next year. And in your opinions, as you look at this budget, please look at the maintenance needs to be done. I do a lot of that in the shopping center. And I appreciate even the local police officers calling me the other day and indicate that I had some boards that had come off the fence between one of the churches in the back part of CPS. Because some children were banging around there with bicycles and hammering it. And now I found that I have some dry rot in those as well. So I give everyone a credit here that participates in the growth of our own local town. So thank you.
We put in for building maintenance and repairs for operating expenses, we put in 23,000. You said you thought it would be 20,000 here.
Yeah.
The extra 3,000 is for.
Yeah, I put some in there because you start cutting into a wall with a dry rot, and you don't know whether you're gonna have a $5,000 bill, or you're gonna have a $20,000 bill. Because you know what the mud soles are gonna look like, as we all know. So anyway, that's kind of where I'm coming from. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Alan, because whether you have a car or a shopping mall, you gotta count on, you're gonna spend this much over 5 years, but you got a budget for every year. So, yeah, and that's what we try to do in our capital improvement plan. So, yeah, it would be great if we had a capital improvement plan for the building, because then you could say, that way, 20 years into a 20-year roof, kind of like, oh, great, now we need to find money for the new roof. You need to, you need to be able to put money away every year for that. Yeah.
And that's a great comment, Councilmember Baggy, because, I mentioned nonprofits, and, one of the nonprofits that the city has supported is our senior center. And likewise, it was the same feedback was, we have these building maintenance items, and my response was, well, let's develop a CIP.
So
And we could look at, as part of providing funding, so it's not funding that's just going to the operations, it's funding for specific purposes that from a kind of a taxpayer perspective, it's much easier to describe. It's black and white, but yet it also offsets a much needed budget expense. But it comes with it a necessary set of improvements that everyone can point to.
Another thing we ran into is what you were alluding to earlier. Somebody will ask me, well, how much does a speaker series cost? Well, there's different ways of looking at that. You rent the space for $187 from CPAC, it is the deal. And sometimes the speakers for free, and maybe the brochure costs $350 or something. You can do, that's not really what it costs. The real cost is maintaining the building, the museum, staff to do it. And there's bigger costs behind that. And so we try to go back to explain, when a speaker series, it doesn't cost $250. It costs what it costs to keep these buildings going. Keeping museums 501c3 license current, all that stuff. So we've tried to get people to understand that there's costs involved that are beyond just the plain old costs. We agree with you about the sinking fund, and we tried that. We have put a line item for years in our budget. And every time we put a line, it turns into this number, and then we take it out because it's earlier in there. So, that's a good, I certainly agree with that. It's a good budget.
I just want to remind everybody that this resource as a museum and a historical library and a progressive sense of spirit of Cloverdale represents everything you're doing when you get together and think about how can we do it? What are we gonna do in the future? And who's gonna really get involved, just like we do with our board of directors. But there's the spirit that really drives this thing, and it's an extension of everything that you believe in as representative of the city. It's an extension of that. In reality, you're walking into what you believe in.
Anything else?
Well, actually, I think Susie, you might be a good person to talk to next. Talk about budget, because I know at our last workshop, and this is why I'm sitting here quiet listening, because I feel everything, I mean, I agree with everything being said. We have no money, so I'm like, I turn to the people that know where to dig, which pocket, where to find it, and say, okay, is it 5,000? Is it 20,000? Is it 60,000? Where do we start? What can we do? And where do we take it from? Because all the money is allocated and then some. And that's kind of where our budget, we're feeling the same thing you are. You talk about the populations here, we're extreme affordable housing here, so it lowers the money that we get in. And we're also now, I think it's 62% 50 and over, because the population is changing, like you talked about. And so now we're fixed income, people aren't leaving their houses because they love Cloverdale, and it changes how much money we end up getting in here. And so I have to turn to people like Susie and say, what do we do? Because I can't run this down into the ground at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel about it. As much as, I mean, I wish we could write a check, I would go, you know, heartbeat. I love that thing. I mean, I was over there staying in the orange tree and snow on my shorts. They're in the t-shirt and shorts digging up an orange tree, so.
You have to give you back your come on.
I figured they were gone, I just threw them on. But Susie knows our budget in and out, and I know that she has a hard time, you know, letting us know that we can't do things, but that's her job. So I don't know where we are. Susie, do you mind speaking?
No, I don't mind at all. So when I take the budget that we currently have and take in the budget amendments that we've created, we have a $560,000 reserve. So if I guess at that point, that's not a lot. First of all, let me say that to be our unreserved, because you can see our total expenses are almost 10 million, and so that's like a half. It's not a lot, and again, this is based on budget versus with the budget amendments.
And have you projected our budget out over the next couple of years to see if we're actually deficit spending or where we would be?
Well, we already have been doing deficit spending for the past 2 years of 900 last year and budgeted 805 this year. So we already are doing that. Something is going to have to change, because that won't, you can see that the 568,000 is not enough for another deficit of 800,000. Does that make sense?
And that's why, I mean, because of this exact situation, this is, right now, this is forecast for, based on our current fiscal year. We're finishing up well, I should say we're finishing, Susie's busy in the beginning of the audit for the fiscal year that just ended. What that will do, let me move this here, is that will change this beginning fund balance number, hopefully to the positive, which then as you go across it, it will bolster that unreserved fund balance. We know we had some savings in the budget, not a lot, but we did. And so it should, or maybe often what happens is we didn't complete all the projects that we wanted to complete. And so we're kind of kicking the can down the road, so to speak. But hopefully that we'll be able to report with the audit that that's a greater number. But what it is a reflection that there are some challenging financial times ahead, and in a context when we're also being asked to provide more support to our nonprofit organizations. And so it's just, we'll have a better picture once the audit's done, but kind of what Susie's pointing out is that our budget is experiencing some headwinds as well.
And we anticipated that because we knew we were using one-time ARPA funds. We knew that we were deficit spending. We did it on purpose, but I just want to make it clear that we can't continue that.
There's a couple of other things that kind of came to mind when Mr. Redmond was presenting is, I think the benefits that are accrued from the Historical Society are greater than just the city itself, benefit more than just the city, and it's a tremendous benefit to the Sonoma County and particularly the whole north region of Sonoma County. Is one of the things we've talked about is capacity building and how can we bring other interests to the table, and I'm thinking Sonoma County in particular, and seeing whether the supervisor through our district court supervisor can also help meet some of the financial needs of our nonprofit, our historical society. We can also look to see if there's opportunities for us to partner on some grant funding, because often there is some ties to grants for this, especially the services that you're offering. Particularly with regards to right now funding for which you kind of talked about, equity issues, members of our Latinx population, our indigenous population, seeking funding. We do have a tribal project in town with the Dry Creek Rancheria. I think a lot of what you're doing with the photo display suggests, maybe there's an opportunity to do some partnerships with them in terms of either services or funding, and then we can work together to kind of close this gap on this funding request. Because I think we could provide some support. It's just, it's a policy decision of council on what that level looks like, and kind of how do we also support such a critical, important organization to our community.
Yeah, David, one thing we've talked about with teachers is we'd like to do a teacher workshop here. A lot of the teachers in Cloverdale don't even know history and they really wanted to come, and that was one of the things before COVID, that we're going to have like a workshop, a luncheon, and have show movies and have it maybe like twice a year, because we do get school kids in third or fourth grades. And so and we did have a grant from the Vintners Foundation to work with the schools. Because of COVID, we couldn't implement it, but it was called a History Maker Project, and we were with high school kids, and they were going to go around. I mean, it was just a great idea. They were going to tell Cloverdale's story. We couldn't do it, but the Vintners Foundation actually allowed us to keep the funds just for our operating costs. So if the city has goals you want to achieve, what David was referring to, I mean, it's right up our alley. That's what we do. We'd be happy to modify. Maybe we do fewer speaker series and more things involved with kids or teachers or some of the populations that you're referring to. But we really work together and collaborate. We have the resources and we're here.
Well, just, a couple of thoughts just to probably wrap this up. And, one is that we don't disagree with anything that you guys are saying, and we don't not value any of what you bring to the community. That goes without question. The difficulty is, and this isn't comforting for me, and I don't expect it to be comforting for you, is that, I'm involved with multiple cities at the state level with through Cal Cities, through our membership organization, and almost every city is facing situations like this, especially small communities like us who don't have a lot of TOT and who have a underperforming tax base. I mean, you can just walk outside the front door and look at the empty lots, and every one of them, and it represents, for not enough taxes coming in, and some of that's a result of leadership, and there were choices made, and then we have the perfect storm of COVID as well coming in and contributing to it. So the cities that are able to fund or help fund nonprofits that give so much, give value to the community like yours does, have TOT, have a higher, better performing tax base. And that's one of the tough ones. And then, of course, there's the perfect storm of right now. Everyone is kind of facing this sort of fiscal cliff. We're being crunched, we have pension obligations. We're in a slightly better fiscal situation than some other communities because we do have our ad valorem. But at the same time, it's like, it's just, you know, the next couple of years, the budget in Cloverdale is going to be extremely tight. I mean, you saw the negative number. And so we'll probably need to take this to the entire council to make a decision. And what I don't want to see us do is what, you know, unfortunately, I'm going to throw Sebastopol under the bus. They're facing a huge financial challenge right now because they're actually in kind of a worse position than we are. They have a very, very tight natural boundary where their expenses are going up. They actually still have their own fire department, which I can't believe. And so they're going to be going out for sales tax because they just don't have the tax base to provide the services that they need to for their community. And they've been providing help to their senior center and providing, and they're just not going to be able to do some of the support of the nonprofits who provide services in their community, or they'll be bankrupt. So, you know, as a council member, you know, fiduciary duty to just face reality. We can't spend money we don't have, even though we might want to. But I think what we can do as council is, and one of the things, the other thing I'm very concerned about is directing staff to provide that, it's going to be staff time to help to find partnerships. You know, it's that you mentioned that it doesn't just cost $250 to put on a speaker series. When staff steps in and helps a nonprofit with capacity building, we actually have a list of how much that costs per hour. That's their hourly rate. We actually have a list, which I would suggest that you create actually. we can help get you over the hump because it's the exact same problems. And that's what you're asking the council to do. And it's a very heavy lift for us right now with the fiscal state that we're in. And with, you know, just basically, deficit spending. And I think that's a place that our voters don't want us to overspend.
Just out of curiosity, the new houses that have been being built south of town, will that benefit the city at all eventually? No?
The market rate ones, well, yeah.
There are no market ratings.
In Baumgartner?
No, they pulled them off the map, so that's
They pulled
third, that's third phase. Right beside. They say they built them in, but when you pull them off your final map, that anybody that looks and knows it.
And that's the key, is market rate housing. Market rate housing and also filling in our downtown and getting our economic drivers going, things like TOT. But those are years out. That's not what we're talking about here. I mean, but we have to talk about it because that's how cities fund programs like this, but we don't have that kind of cash right now.
That's why I've been having meetings weekly out on the pavement, trying to find people to come in here and develop something that's market rate above.
Me too.
That we can do. I mean, we all love a small community, but you know what, if we have to put in some more big mansions, whatever you want to call them, you know, or
It's tough.
something,
The
we-
builders
that's
are tough
something.
too, when things went remote, I'm just putting on a different hat here. When things went remote, it was a little easier because they didn't always tell me, well, you're far away from employment centers. And we have the ZMZ project that could just be great if they did build it. Vista Oaks, which you've approved. But trying to find some builders because they're in the same situation. You know, they're worried about building costs are going up. It's not the building community it used to be.
I've met
10 years ago.
4 of the biggest builders around and they
They're
all
good.
love it, but they're like, interest rates are in. One of me said, I own the bank. You know, and I was still questioning. So.
Well, Mayor, Chair, and
Councilmember Bennett, one thing, we can look at, council had directed staff to use the one-time ARPA money for specific purposes, and for the most part, the funds have been allocated. It comes with a timeline to make sure we've used all those funds. I can work with Susie. I know we allocated some funding to the Sonoma County Food Alliance, our River Empire Food Bank. We could kind of look to see what remaining ARPA funds are left and report that back. Because again, that's one-time funding. It's not general fund. We do have a deadline to get those funds expended, so that might be an opportunity. In that case, I'd probably ask the History Center to provide us with a list of, like a maintenance or not a maintenance project, but an improvement project that we could, it's kind of a one-time, funding request, and then that might help you in the near term, just make sure you're continuing to provide the maintenance you need, but then look at the kind of more of the ongoing funding as part of the budget process, which we're going to start in early next year. We'll have hopefully audited financials at that point, know where we stand, have a real accurate or much more accurate picture where we stand. So, it could be a kind of a short-term solution to help their budget with, some one-time commitment of funds, and then take a look at kind of more of the operational issue, maybe between now and then, hone in if there's some specific programs, what the costs of those are, so that when council and ultimately discuss council looks at funding, it's tied to a specific set of services that, like, if you want to do the speaker series, what's the cost of doing the speaker series? And what's the city's funding contribution towards that speaker series? So again, that direct tie between the service and the city's financial contribution, I think would be really helpful.
I think that's a great
That's
idea.
a great idea. But I'd also, it's like, we need to open it up to, there are other nonprofits that are probably in similar straits and are going to need consideration, and it can't be a case of, oh, well, you got the money first because you were there first. It really has to be an open and fair and transparent process. And so that our other existing partners can be part of that discussion about the manner in which we would offer funding.
Are you talking about for the ARPA or for the ongoing?
I think both. I think both, because if it's just scattershot, I don't think that's fair or transparent. So
I think as a council, we need to prioritize.
Yeah.
When we do this budget.
Yep.
And no, we have $80,000 to give to everyone, or 100, whatever the number is,
that's how the county does it.
lay it out.
Yeah.
And say this is what we can do, and that's the end of it.
But the supervisor's office has some discretionary funds as well that we might go after. But a lot of people are asking for that because so many communities and so many nonprofits are in a similar boat.
Well, the scary part to me is as I drive around through Nevada and Arizona and Colorado and go through all these little towns, they all have museums, but they're closed.
They're all closed, yeah.
They're all closed, selling off their assets, and we've been very fortunate, thanks to Alyssa and Greg and Cal, and to be still in business, so to speak. And we're
so
very
thankful for that. I think there's no doubt. We really are. I love it. I'm third.
That's right.
I'm third generation. You're third.
You want to see the series?
I'm not there yet.
Well, I'm gonna get all you guys fucking Rotary, so that we're playing with that too.
So we are so appreciative, and we wish we were in better situations, but we'll do what we can for sure. We do have a partner. It's a partnership. It is. It really is, but I have to remember that.
I appreciate your seriousness and everything.
If you just budget with what you have, we'll be fine.
Yeah, and we'll keep growing and grow together. I like the idea that we might collaborate. I think it's really a great idea.
What's nice is we have a very transparent budget. Anytime we need something, Susie, I mean, she put it right there on the screen in front of her. There's nothing to hide. So it's like you can see what we have and where the decisions are coming from and why. And so you can look at that number and go, well, why are they getting so much? Well, there'll be an answer. All right.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you all for.
This part is gone. Martin's over. Thank you very much for having us. Very much appreciate it. Very kind of you.
We'll be in touch.
That's what
We never get meeting.
I'll have Ken and name you.
Okay.
And you too. Yes, sir. All right, great. Thank you. You're all right.
See you later. Thanks. Good seeing you.
No, anything.
Thank you, Robert. Shoot.
Oh, nice.
Update you on that.
Yeah. All right, thank you, David.
Take care.
You guys, thank you.
See you, thank you. Susie, thank you for that.
No problem.
Hey, Mike, if you can let Adam Smith in as a panelist or as a speaker for the next item.
I've sent the request. They just have to accept it on their end.
Where, is that when you're running this one?
I'll be here.
All right, the next one is consider residential water leak adjustment.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And just we have Mr. Adam Smith joining us. Thank you, Adam, for your patience. Adam and his wife live at 177 Cherry Creek Court. In the area of where his residence is situated, the city maintains has an easement that runs along the back side of the property. There's a water main that serves a number of residences. The city water main actually experienced a leak, and kind of concurrently, you have it that there was a leak within the Mr. Smith's property. Our crews were out responding to the water leak, and because of the situation, it was kind of unclear that the leak that Mr. Smith experienced was from our leak or his. And anyways, Mr. Smith can certainly share his perspective on that, because once it was brought to his attention that he had a leak on his property from his own lateral, which normally property owners are responsible for. They incur the cost of covering any water usage associated with that leak. But again, because of the kind of the confusion around the water from our leak and his leak occurring kind of concurrently, it made it a little more challenging for Mr. Smith to be aware of his leak. So right now in your packet it's just an overview of the water usage for the preceding 12-month period. Is kind of typical average use of 5 units per month. In the leak month, there was about 314 units. So clearly there was a pretty large leak. Adam came in, visited me, and we spoke. He did pay kind of the outstanding charges, but not the amount that was related to the leak. What I shared with Mr. Smith is that currently under the water leak adjustment policy, which is set by resolution, we can grant a $250 adjustment to the bill. Mr. Smith has asked if we'd be willing to increase the leak adjustment amount for this particular case, given the kind of the specifics of this particular water leak. What he's asked is, would the city be willing to kind of split the cost of those units? Again, the total is $1,752, so that would mean a leak adjustment of about, well, if we split that in half,
$850.
About $875. Which exceeds,
Would we take the 250 and then split or split from the 1750?
Yeah.
split from the 1750,
Okay.
because basically the way I view it is increasing the leak adjustment amount, and that's versus giving the adjustment, then splitting it, so. Again, Mr. Smith is here today. I don't know, Mr. Smith, if you wanted to kind of weigh in on your.
Yeah, I just,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and hopefully you guys can hear me okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I just wanted to kind of explain the history a little bit. We've been in the house for a little over 2 years now. I think the city's been out at least 4 times to fix the city line that was on our property. Like I said, the day I noticed the leak, I contacted the city, spoke to Trevor, which was on April 5th. They sent somebody out from the city that evening, looked at it and agreed that it was their line. So I kind of stopped investigating at that point. And then on, they said they were going to come out on 4/10 due to some weather related issues around that time. I believe it was really hot and they were actually going to replace the line at that time. Anyway, they came out on 4/12 and that's when they notified me that it was actually the leak was on my line, which I corrected that same day. So I just kind of wanted to get that out there. So it wasn't like I was ignoring the water leak. I just, we were assuming it was the city line, which had leaked repeatedly, and it kind of, the drainage, it all kind of comes out the same spot. So it's kind of hard to tell where the leak was coming from. It just was leaking the same spot that the city line had leaked, 4 previous times.
So, Mr. Smith, do you know the name of the city worker that you were in contact with that told you that it was on the city's property and the city's leak?
I spoke to Trevor on the first day on 4/5. Then I spoke to, on the 12th, I spoke to, I think it was the director of public works. I can't remember his name here. I got it here. Derek.
Yeah, I spoke to you on the phone.
Yeah. And I
that what we were doing to replace.
yeah, and I'd emailed Derek. Derek was the one who kind of told me to reach out to the city because he was the one who I believe told me that the bill was going to be rather large. I'd emailed Derek a couple of times, and then I actually got a hold of David a couple of weeks ago and emailed him and kind of copied him on all the emails, attached a couple of photos to those emails as well.
Well, we can say water runs downhill. I can see why, I'm sure that added to it. I'd be happy with the compromise.
I would agree. I think it's a fair compromise for everyone, and apologize for the mix up, and
Yeah.
Thank you for working with us on this.
Oh, yeah, no problem.
So just for the record, what we see is based on our analysis, the billing charge for the units is $1,752.
Is that the extra units, or is that like,
That's
if you had an average of 5, is that the
that's
overage?
It's the overage, so the credit was for, took away the average.
Okay, so they credited 3
Right.
million, there it is.
If you split the 1752, it's $876. So Mr. Smith's, I think, agreed to pay 50%. Which means we would then credit the other $876.03.
And that's just gonna come out of the water fund, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Which would be an increase in the leak adjustment of from 250 to 620, an additional $626.03.
On a one-time.
On one time.
I think that considering the terrain there and that clearly, we had a conflagration of events, I think that that's fair. So,
Okay. Mr. Smith, I don't know if he left us.
I think he got his name left.
Oh.
I think he took the money and ran. So.
Oh, he's still here.
Yeah, it sounds like he's having some internet connection issues.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
But I'll have to check, if this needs to go to council for final approval, if so, I'll put it on the consent item.
Consent item. Yeah.
And we'll indicate the subcommittee's support for the additional, and we agree, because of the issues experienced with this particular piece of property, I think a one-time leak adjustment amount increase for this makes sense.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, that was easy. And Adam, if you can hear us, thank you. Can or not, but. Oh, I do that.
Yes, so I'll just wait to hear from you, David, or?
Yes, yeah, I'll follow up with you, Mr. Smith.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
that sounds good.
We'll be moving forward. Thank you as well. E3, painting, City Hall exterior and police station interior.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So, included in your packet is a quote, provided by Fitzgerald Painting, for, exterior prep and painting of City Hall. This is something that we had been, considering in the past. We do think it's time for really a refresh of paint job here at City Hall. But most recently, we did experience some moisture intrusion from the south facing wall that, led to a deterioration of the sheetrock in the council office. And I think what it's a reflection of is that we really do need to seal the stucco. Probably the entire building needs, especially that, because it doesn't have any, from what I can see, any sealant, and we experienced a high moisture here. So in a way, I see this as a not only a aesthetic measure, but a protective measure to ensure that we don't have moisture intrusion into our walls. We've worked.
A mural artist, the tour, she was very concerned about the condition of that south facing wall.
Okay.
And I think she knows walls. It's like, no.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it was never painted in the first place. I can't speak to that, but yeah, I think it definitely needs to be sealed and painted. We see a paint. The quote includes 2 to 3 color scheme. I think what we recommend is keeping the building white, but adding some color on the front to reflect kind of the Art Deco style of this WPA building. We're seeing a lot of these buildings and structures being designated as historic across the United States. But with that said, we're just seeking your support. This would have to go to council with the budget adjustment. We can see if there's any way to finance it with non-general fund revenue, but we'll have to maybe if one of our impact fee accounts can support this activity, we'll certainly propose that. But otherwise, we just want to move this forward because we feel like it needs to get addressed. And the sooner the better before the next rainy season hits.
Or another aluminium or an aluminium.
Concrete's porous, you have to, there's no water.
So rude too.
Well, I think the roof so far has been in pretty good condition. We just replaced all the HVAC, so there was some new flashing installed.
Okay, so there's, and is it just tar? Is it just?
It's no, it's a foam roof.
Oh, Lord.
So it's not the
One of those.
preferred rooftops, but I think, with proper maintenance, it's doing okay. But flashing is important. We have kind of permanent walls up there.
The one request I had, as you know, is the elastomeric paint versus just regular paint.
Okay.
It lasts longer and works better.
Maybe,
No, it's
but it's good for stucco. So
it's good for, yeah, it's like rubberized almost.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And so it goes on really thick and you will rot the inside of a house before that paint will go bad on the outside. And so that's what I like about it with stucco.
Does Margaret Is she familiar with it? Or?
She's familiar, and that's why I mentioned to David today when we were talking about it was, I don't know if they have the correct sprayer for it,
Right.
but they should, and if they don't, they need to rent it because it's worth the extra $500 in materials to do this, to do it right on this, at least on that wall.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least on,
Yeah,
okay,
that
at
sounds
least on
really
that
good.
wall.
No, I'm doing marine paint on my house, because everything south facing and west facing just doesn't last 5 years, so, yeah.
Thanks.
It's good, it's always been wrong paint.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I hear support for moving this forward.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're using Fitzgerald again, so I just, yeah, they just do such great work.
Those are good prices too, and they're homes, so they.
Well, and if they do something wrong, you'll hear it from all their neighbors.
Absolutely. Right, so we're good there. E4, consider city of Cloverdale on next door.
Okay, well, let's see, we have attendee Molly Fisher.
There,
Thanks,
thanks.
Eric. Mike, if you can go ahead and promote her to panelist. This item was agendized at the request of Ms. Fisher. That the city consider establishing an account on Nextdoor. And before I turn it over back to Chair and Councilmember, just a perspective, our city clerk Mike did do a survey of Sonoma County cities, and Mike, do you want to report on that, what your findings were?
Sure. So thank you, Molly, for giving us some of the information of other cities within our county that are currently utilizing Nextdoor or at least have accounts. I reached out to the other clerks, and most are still trying to get me information from either their PIOs or their marketing and outreach coordinators. Katati, for example, has an account. They no longer utilize it. I requested information as to what made them make that decision, and they haven't gotten back to me quite yet. Sebastopol is able to provide me with their policies as far as what they post, when they post, and who posts it. And they use a contract, or they have contracted staff to do that, so they don't utilize staff similar to us based on the capacity level. They just that was a decision they went with, and others haven't responded quite yet or are not using it. So right now it's only gotten 2 of I think the 8 that I've sent out.
But Mike, do you confirm that all 8 cities are in the county?
Similar to Molly, as best I could. If you aren't in the area, you can't necessarily sign up for their next doors. It's hard to, because it's all based on proximity to where you are.
So just some thoughts for your consideration. There's kind of different levels of participation, if you will. One from signing up to account, and just having an account and being able to log on and view content, to having an active role, and then that active role can be posting information, or it can be actually responding to inquiries. And just using kind of our role on Facebook as the other social media outlet, we have an account, just much like the Cloverdale PD. Generally, we don't respond to comments, we post information. Kind of our strategy with posting is really to try to drive folks back to our site where content is found. And it's something to the benefit of having Mike is trying to make sure we've established an internal website committee. So we're trying to really look at areas where we can kind of add content to our web page, get information available to the community that's in demand. A good example of that, Chief has worked on putting our police logs on our website, so that via the newsletter, we can drive folks back to our website to get those police logs. We're currently updating our pages, and again, the intent is to drive folks to our website versus necessarily being an active participant on these social media sites, because we're finding, because of the algorithms that they use, the content that you see is different by who you are. And so I get questions about, why didn't you respond to that? Well, I didn't see that content because it wasn't necessarily available.
If it's free, you're the product.
Right. So
The algorithms.
and then for us, it's really kind of a resource issue of being able to dedicate staff time to actively monitor and respond. So I think for us, it's with a small staff, it's very challenging. And I don't have any good metrics to identify that, you know, what's the return on engagement on the social media outlet. Sometimes it feels like the return is relatively low. With that said, we value getting information to the community. Ms. Fisher, for example, was an advocate for the police logs, and we try to find solutions to get that information and again, provide that on our website, not necessarily to be posting it on social media. So that's just some context for the subcommittee. Ms. Fisher did ask that we kind of bring it to subcommittee for conversation, so that's why this is on here. So we know it also, some of the things that this brings into play is with cities, unlike individuals, we're subject to the Public Records Act. So anytime any post is made on a social media site, it's required to be cataloged and retained as a record. And that's where it's really difficult when you're engaging in conversations with somebody. That record can go away, and we don't have the means to maintain that record. So because it's posted and maintained and controlled by somebody else, so it puts us in a difficult position where you're trying to convey information, but because of the system, it puts us kind of at loggerheads with rules and regulations that we have as a municipal government.
Well, and honestly, I think that we have plenty of resources on that. I'm happy to hear that we're, still that the sort of what it's officially a social media subcommittee, or Mike is holding it, but I mean, we are, as you mentioned, subject to, very, very specific rules around speech and about the Public Record Act, public record, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that the best approach is really to use the Institute for Local Government resources and to use the Cal Cities resources to develop our policies going forward. And I think that there's basically social media right now is like, it's just the Wild West. It's unregulated. It's subject to algorithms that are not conducive to, fair and equal distribution of information. So while I certainly, am happy to hear a recommendation, it's like, well, why aren't you guys on Nextdoor? Honestly, I think it needs to grow out of the resources that are provided by Cal Cities and provided by Institute for Local Government, and the decision needs to be made from there. So I would prefer to have staff analyze it based on those criterion and then get a recommendation.
David, just so you're aware, and so the subcommittee is aware, Petaluma just responded to me. They too, they have a social media policy that they shared. They have 3 staff members who occasionally review, but they contract their consulting services around social media with a contract provider.
Yeah, because it's so labor intensive, yeah. But it's again, like Petaluma is like a 50,000+, almost 50, what are they, 58,000 person city. They're considerably larger, so they have very different needs for outreach than, and we're more in the Cotati, Sebastopol, Sonoma.
And I'm hoping to compile everything, and once I get things from Hillsburg, Windsor, Cotati, they'll share that.
But dollar for dollar.
And that's why I'm also happy to get recommendations from the public as to, how we can better communicate. So I'm sure Molly wants to jump in at some point.
Nextdoor does recommend that agencies, when you post, so you don't have to worry about people contacting you through Nextdoor. Some agencies don't do that, and if you don't, then Nextdoor asks that you moderate your comments so that they comply with Nextdoor's policies. They're pretty heavily moderated. They don't allow lots of different things that other social media websites do. So I don't know. I think it's something to look at. I am posting stuff from the city of Cloverdale, for my neighbors. They seem to appreciate it. And I don't know that I'm getting everything 100% correct. And so it occurred to me one day, boy, wouldn't it be nice if the city were doing this? So I appreciate you considering it.
Molly, are you on our newsletter that goes out weekly?
Oh, yeah, I post the newsletter to Nextdoor.
Yeah.
And I post instructions about how to subscribe. I think you guys are doing a great job with the newsletter and all of your public information. I think you're doing great. I just thought, it'd be nice if I were getting it right or if I were getting it wrong to know.
But it might be where like Mike can take the other policies from other cities, and it might be more appropriate that just for example, instead of having to depend on you to take it upon yourself to post the content of our newsletter, but by the way, thank you, but it might be appropriate for the chamber to be pushing that out. So, it might not be something that the city necessarily wants to do, but I think it has to be looked at through, the best practices lens and go through staff and make sure that, well, we're getting information out, but we're also not, exposing us or exposing the city or exposing staff. Yeah. So that's kind of the recommendation whenever we're in the cycle where Mike needs to bring that back to us, it'd be great to kind of look at it through that lens. What would be appropriate for us to do? And maybe we ask the chambers to, have an additional presence on some of the platforms where they're just pushing information out.
Great. Anything else? Molly, anything else from you?
No, not a thing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the suggestion.
And Mayor, if I can just again say thank you to Ms. Fisher for your advocacy and support for public information. And anytime you want to you want me to fact check anything or offer feedback on, don't hesitate to send me an email. Happy to as quickly as I can give you any feedback that might be beneficial, or if you're seeing questions come up that you want an answer to, I can certainly point you to the right resource.
Thank you. Yeah, you and Mr. Maloney have both been very responsive and I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. We'll move on now to the standing items. Bonding capacity for City Hall and Police Station and USDA funding.
Okay, just a quick update. I provided this subcommittee last time we met. Remember, we took July off because of the holiday. Received your feedback on a number of possible projects. Those were provided to Mr. Isom with Isom Advisors. He has come back and asked for some not additional projects. He was asking for some additional kind of terminology input for his survey. So I know I think it's a work in progress, and it's more around the language that's developing for the survey. So I'll continue to coordinate with Isom, and if needed, I'll seek your feedback on some of the information he's requesting.
Thank you. Anything? Ron, Measure B cannabis report.
Yeah, in your packet is an attachment prepared by Director Holmes. It's both got the graphical component as well as kind of a spreadsheet of revenue that there are deposits that have been made to Measure P. And I think the people kind of paints the picture. You can kind of see that the revenue currently is really, since the change was made, is revenue that we receive is more consistent when the cannabis industry was kind of in its initial infancy in Cloverdale, and so it's kind of an evolution, if you will. I think we're kind of starting to see a little normalization around the revenue. But Susie, I'll turn it over to you if there's any perspective you want to offer about your data table.
I think the only perspective that I really would have is that the June revenue looks low, and I'm going off of memory, and that has to do with the June 30th due date happened with the 4th of July weekend, and there was a long weekend in there. So a lot of the revenue was actually received in July. That's why the July revenue looks high, and that's why the June revenue looks low.
Okay. Split the difference a little bit. Okay.
Susie, is everybody up to date on their paying their taxes?
We have one business that is 2 months past due in their taxes. We made them aware of it both months. They promised that they were going to pay it. I looked earlier and I didn't see it being paid today. But yes, there is one that's 2 months past due.
We're not meeting next month because that's Labor Day, right?
That's right. We're not the regular scheduled date.
Did we move it?
We.
All right, I mean, it's on topic, but not on
You
topic.
you have not, so if you want to, it's more of if you want to schedule a special meeting,
Okay.
otherwise your next meeting, would be, not till October
Right,
2nd.
so what's your, so I kind of like, willing to like go 3 months, but I'm for a little uncomfortable, but. What's your sense, Susie? You think we could wait till October to review it, or because we would need, if we're overdue, we need to take action?
I think we take action now. And here's why,
Yeah, I-
because
I agree.
we've had a lot of issues with this, and it's time for us to kind of tighten the reins a little bit, and we just met with them, what, 3 weeks ago?
Mhm.
And made it very clear, you guys have to be up, you guys have to stay on top of things, and they're obviously not, someone's not.
How far have we let it? I mean, it's my, I completely agree with tightening the reins, but not out of nowhere.
Right.
How far have we let things go in the past?
Well, on the TOT, I mean, on the TOT, the Measure P revenue, how far out? 3 months?
Yeah. I
Three-
think
3 months is the max that we've allowed, and for every month that they're behind, for 2 months, they have to pay a 25% penalty. So
we-
like
you
yeah.
know that we don't want to have a special meeting, but we will.
We can certainly
Maybe
convey
my vacation early. No.
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
that
I have to call,
playing late is.
it's gonna be frowned upon because, yeah. You can try 3 months. I don't want to go to 3 months. Does that help at all, Susie?
I use I use this meeting as a little bit of a hammer each time. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, because I
Yeah.
say
Up to date by September 4th, which is our regularly scheduled meeting,
Yeah.
up to date by
Don't
this
make me
date.
schedule a special meeting, please. Well, not, because then I'll be like, they're 2 months overdue and that's it. I won't want to go to 3.
Okay. We can convey.
Okay. After this, we're going to 2 months, and you're overdue, that's it.
and then we have one business that is past due and has not made any arrangement to make their annual cannabis permit fee.
We'll follow up.
Thank you.
Okay.
We hear that subcommittee clearly.
It's time.
Well, I think that we were, you know, the history of this is difficult, because, you know, there were all kinds of, you know, promises made, and which I think should not have been taken seriously in many cases because it's an emerging industry. And then we listened to them and realized that the industry is in a very different place. We made an adjustment, they need to be on time now. And that's just being fair, and if they can't make it, with the concessions that we've had, then that's it. And we have other people might be interested in those licenses who can't. You can tell them that too, Susie. You quote me.
Yeah, it's helpful to be able to do that.
HGBY. Other businesses, these are,
Oh, I agree with
these
you.
permits are, they're sought after. And it's a partnership with this community, it's the agreement that we all made, people who voted for cannabis and those who weren't, and the promise was that we were going to police and enforce this industry. And so, we have an obligation to, not just the business owners, but to the residents as well, who got on board with this. So I think we've been reasonable, and, that's my position.
I completely agree. Second to everything she said. All right, moving on, grants, grant writing.
Oh, wait, water.
Oh, do we skip one?
Water.
Oh, I'm sorry, water rate revenue tracking.
Yes, so in your packet is a tracking worksheet that shows water rate revenue for the 4 previous fiscal years, including the one that just ended in June 30th. It's here for various reasons. One is just transparency, so you can see the pattern of water revenue and how much has been paid, but also gives you a good picture of the amount that's been collected by fiscal year. You can see we did end up 22-23 with an increase in revenue of just short of $320,000, which that's after two rate adjustments. We did see declines in April, May, and June. What that's a reflection of is the council ended the water rate surcharge. So you saw an immediate impact in the decline in revenue in those months. It started to get offset with the increase in water usage, I think, as we started to get into the warmer months of May. From April, it was still very wet. So, hopefully we're going to be at a point where kind of year over year, but on a monthly rolling basis, we're up. Because, what's still critical here is that we're building up that fund balance to prepare to be able to pay for important capital improvement projects that are on a pay-go basis. Tomorrow, our public works staff is meeting to discuss the results of the hydraulic evaluation that was completed for the Cherry Creek or South Crest Reservoir. And that's one where that's our next big CIP project that we're going to be cash financing. So, I'm trying to get a sense of what that number is going to look like, so we can kind of tie that to what the impact is going to be on our fund balance. So, anyways, again, this is just really information. When folks want to know, well, what about that water rate revenue? We put in here. This is a great source of just data, and we get a pretty good picture if you want to drill down on it. But if there's any analysis you want to do more than what's shown, we certainly can do this. But I think it's just that we're going to do this every month. Keep the subcommittee up to date, and hopefully the council as well.
Anything else from anyone? Now we'll go to the last one.
Okay.
Grant writing investment options.
Yeah, and included in the packet is a grant funding matrix. I think if you take a look at it, you'll find it's a really informative document on all of the grant programs that we are currently monitoring. This matrix was prepared by West Yost. They have a grant writing team under kind of our city engineer contract. So as part of that contract that you council approved, this is one of the services that we're providing. We've been using the funding in the grant budget to help cover those expenses. Almost weekly, we are adding to this, and I shared this with the subcommittee previously that this is what we're using to kind of evaluate grant opportunities. And one, there's a lot of them, but also kind of tying them to kinds of projects,
project phase, whether tied to Spanish community, the website, so. It's a really good tracker. We've been, a lot of focus has been on infrastructure projects, of course. But there's a lot of different programs out there, and we try to add those when they come into this and look at it in the context of where we can put our staff time and resources. So if you see grant opportunities, send it our way. We'll add it to the tracker, kind of fit it in, and then we kind of do an evaluation of each one of those and see how it what it's going to take, what our cash match is, what all the elements are to be able to actually submit an application, because some of the applications that we've paid Wistios to help us prepare. It's not inexpensive. It's the ones where we've been successful. It's a tremendous ROI. But when you don't get it, it's an expense. It's an expense. But anyway, we will. This is something we'll try to continue to, much like the other ones, continue to put on the subcommittee agenda as we get updates. I know just today I asked them to add one here.
What was it?
It was actually a program for technical assistance. No, that's fine. It was a program for implementation of transit-oriented development pilot projects.
Cool. Yeah.
So I just got the announcement today. I sent it to the staff member that we work with. Her name is Hawkeye, and she was already kind of starting the initial evaluation. She'll get back to us and say, here's kind of the things. She'll consult with Vanessa or talk to Kevin or myself, and then we kind of see
This is what's gonna fit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Cool.
Anything else?
And I sent that out to council, Mayor, just because I wanted to share, council supported the agreement with Wistios, but it was one of the products. Because we could easily pay for, I've seen these types of services cost, easily $30,000 a year, just for doing this work for us, not buying one. So I really value this relationship with Wistios and thankful that council has supported those agreements, because I know the price tag isn't cheap.
Well, we all questioned it at first because it's very expensive. And when you say, oh, an engineer or whoever, they offer so much more, and the ROI is what I look at. And that's why I asked for that a while back, is show us that we're making the right decisions. And you have.
It's the batting average.
Yeah. And you have it. It's awesome.
No, the relationship ongoing, but then just the timing of Rush River Watershed as well. And all of the expertise, all the expertise that they bring, just about our region and what other cities and other communities are doing that are our size or smaller and larger. It's just so valuable. They're a great resource for us. We're lucky that they have a local office.
Right. Future agenda items.
Just real quickly, so we're going to be bringing this forward. The town of Windsor actually is kind of led up this, what they're referring to is the Russian River Reuse Collaborative. It's kind of a name that we collectively developed amongst the cities in Sonoma County to establish a MOU amongst the cities to collaborate on water reuse or recycled water. And so why that's important is we've applied for a USVR grant to do the technical study for our wastewater treatment plant. The value of converting to recycled isn't just within Cloverdale or the community. It's going to benefit the entire watershed. And where we see the federal funding agencies, their metric around funding is not so much at the community level, it's at the regional level. And so they're gonna wanna see regional benefits in terms of water use reduction or benefiting, agricultural community with for recharge. And so Windsor's been leading up this effort to develop an MOU. It's really drafted, I didn't want to put it on yet. Myers Nave, their city attorney, will be reviewing it, and ultimately we're gonna be bringing it forward. It may lead to kind of an establishment of, at some point, another like regional governance entity. We're not sure, because it's all been staff developed at this point. It's gonna bubble up to elected officials. They've done this down in the Bay Area and with great success, to the point where they have been funded to the tune of, millions of dollars for reuse because of the impact of the drought on communities. So this is still in its infancy. They're kind of looking at, what is a reasonable financial contribution from each of the partners to kind of fund this new organization, or to fund this JPA effort. So
It's gonna be an MOU or a JPA. It's not gonna be a JPA.
yeah, maybe or it might start as an MOU. Work, we work collaboratively and then we develop it into a JPA. I'm not sure. They're kind of following the lead of this effort that was established in the Bay Area and kind of how they.
Was it Palo Alto or was it the peninsula or was it on the?
It was,
East Bay?
it was kind of like, I think it was the East Bay.
Okay.
Yeah. But it involves some of the Sonoma Valley, not Sonoma Valley, but the Sonoma out there by Highway 37.
Oh,
In that area. I don't know how recycled water ties into that, but maybe it's Vallejo and
Could have been involved there. But it's another example of, it's like, we don't have the ability to go after those grants if we're just too small. But if we work together, like under our CPA or, one of the other JPAs that we do, then we're much more successful.
right. That's what
Collective effort.
we've been told is like Bureau Reclamation. They don't want to fund like a
Yeah. They
$1
don't.
million project. They want to fund a $25 million
Right.
for the region, and they want all the cities or the entities to participate and show these greater benefits than just these one-offs. So anyways, it's still a process. It's just, that's why I put it under features to kind of give you an update, but it's more to come on this one.
Melanie, anything else? I have a couple, let's see if you guys want to add or not. The first one is code enforcement. I wonder if we want to talk about their contract to update or change or modify or or whatever the case may be. And the second one is, before Chief leaves us, I'd like to get an outlook on 2024. What is it? The county people are planning to leave. What's the expectations? What are we looking for? What's the doom and gloom? Because I think that we're going to be caught and not be prepared for what could happen in the next couple of years.
So what was the last one?
I'm sorry, an update from Chief Ferguson regarding the police departments and its future after he's gone, 2024 and on.
Perfect, thank you.
That might dovetail with the funding capacity analysis where we're looking for.
I'm just worried, I'm worried that we're gonna lose officers. We have some that are hurt, we're losing the chief, which means lieutenants taking a spot, and we can't fill. We just filled one spot in a year and a half. So I really nervous that we're gonna have burnout or not be able to defend our city properly. It will be understaffed. I'm worried about that. Everyone has a problem, which is fault. You can't rely on 6 guys. So I just want to hear what his thoughts are.
Oh, as chief, I'll coordinate with chief. Is that fair?
You know, man, I think you're being able to put it in the spot. It's gonna be a future factor. It's like I'm putting on the spot here. Come December, you're off and Good time land. I just don't know what else to do.
What is your last day?
14.
You're like, it's exactly.
67 days.
Exactly.
hour and 28 minutes.
I will give you that same answer every time you ask.
Um,
I'm trying to bump it back.
Yeah.
Anyone else have anything else? All right, meeting adjourned at 3:14. Thank you, guys.
Have a good day.
Thanks, Susie.